Do stoners have more empathy than non-stoners? New research says, maybe. And if you're into brain science, this one's for you. I'm Lex Pelger. I do Canna education for CV Sciences, the makers of Plus CBD, who has excellent CBD and THC products to make you a better person. This study involved both brain scans and tests for empathy. We will begin with the anterior cingulate cortex, which is abbreviated ACC, and is a brain area very, very rich in CB1 receptors. It's a very important brain region, and you can see a lot of the things that it does up here that involve emotions. And as this paper says, the ACC has been proposed as a cortical hub of the salience network, involved in the processing of external and internal stimulation to maintain homeostasis. As in, it takes in signals from outside yourself and inside yourself and processes them to help you maintain balance and homeostasis. A number of other studies have looked at cannabis users in this brain region and tested them on things like inhibition control, awareness error detection, and reward anticipation, and they found that people who use cannabis have lower activation of this ACC region, and they tend to do worse on those kind of tests. In fact, this study suggests that chronic cannabis users have lower levels of CB1 receptors in their anterior cingulate cortex. But there hasn't been as much work on the emotions, though you do have some studies suggesting that there's a link between how recently you smoked cannabis and an increased sense of pro-sociality, or helping others. And here's a funny one. While males who smoke regularly tend to have higher levels of agreeableness, females who smoke regularly tend to have higher levels of aggression. Anyway, for today's study, these Mexican researchers looked at empathy. With 85 regular cannabis users and 51 non-users, they tested their levels of empathy using a scale called the Cognitive and Affective Empathy Test. The cannabis users scored higher on emotional comprehension, which is the ability to detect the feelings of others. And as the researcher said, previous research has shown that this leads to behaviors related to a greater understanding of other emotions, less verbal hostility, enhanced prosociality, and empathetic predisposition to others' situations. And then they did fMRI brain scans of the participants. And you should know that the ACC, along with the bilateral anterior insula, has been proposed as your empathy core network. So, the cannabis people had higher levels of functional connectivity between their left anterior insula and their ACC, as well as with their posterior central gyrus, which is your primary motor control, which was odd. But in very intriguing results, there's also greater connectivity to the somatomotor cortex, which is not only where we feel things in our body, like this famous picture here, it's also where we feel things going on in other people's bodies. When you see somebody hit their thumb with a hammer and then you wince, that's your somatomotor cortex feeling. It helps you to simulate the actions and emotions of others inside your brain. And that seems to be highly connected to your empathy core network in regular cannabis users.